and I will die and kill for them if necessary.
Go to ground, 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 go to ground. It's all about that warfare, boy. Give ground, give ground, back up, give ground, give ground, back up, give ground, give ground. It's all about that warfare, boy. Take ground, 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 take ground. My soldiers take ground till I'm stand down. Take ground, take ground, take ground, take ground, take ground, take ground, take ground. My soldiers take ground till I'm stand down. Take ground, take ground, take ground. Nah, this ain't no movement, this a takedown. We would not be moved or intimidated. We ain't the type. You got a problem, tell them cross the fucking line. My niggas ain't polite. Soldiers to the left and right. I die for every man body. Before I be a coward, I'd rather be a dead body. This will be my kingdom when the hour pass. You can either get with it or get flipped like an hourglass. We live by honor and no excuse. Just sit to pray up to the Lord. I told him, then let all the terrorists loose. Hold your tongue or get rebuked, cause you made a truce. With a race to make merchandise out of my bills. Scared of who? You got your gun, then pull it. Me and my niggas start to argue, it's about who gon' bite the bullet. It gon' take round, take round, take round. Opponents better move slow. Attack dog for this truth, nigga, cool zone. Go to ground, 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 go to ground. It's all about that warfare, boy. Give ground, give ground, give ground, back up, give ground, give ground, give ground, back up, give ground, give ground. It's all about that warfare, boy. Take ground, 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 take ground. My soldiers take ground till I'm stand down. Take ground, take ground, take ground, take ground, take ground, take ground, take ground. My soldiers take ground till I'm stand down. Oh, thought you could cross us with no consequence, but you will pay dearly. You should've used your common sense. My zeal lit, that means you could never prevail. Hey, with a true sit, hey, with warriors dwell. Be wise with them weapons, cause I promise. My nine just like my wife, she concealed, she modest. I know two things, a robber will not prosper. And any man harm me and my aunt, gon' meet the doctor. Cause this life is warfare, it's not an easy walk. Been watching my people die, so you can miss me with that love talk. My UPK soldiers, any man try to cross your path, make him regret it. What that mean? Fall on his ass. Comparing me to you really ain't no contest. Long live one West. Say what? Long live one West. This for those who thinking we ain't ready for. Tell them back up. I'm about to drop something heavy for. Go to ground.
Yeah, yeah. UPK shit, man. One West. Hey. I'm a UPK nigga, I'm stuck in my ways. That's on them, letting cowards fill up they ranks. Goddamn, lost tribes got them following waves. Loyalty a lifestyle, nigga, I'm just saying. Yeah, I'm a saint, no New Orleans, it's going up. Next spot, we at the B&B. I'm turned up, I'll pull up in the SRT. Burning rubber, hey, UPK shit. Look, met her at the club, told her pull up to the lobby. She know I'm in the coat, we're all black, no Illuminati. This my other half shit, I can't move without it. These my motherfucking brothers, yeah, what I'm gonna do without them, yeah. If it's beef, I can't wait to sink my teeth in. Niggas going overboard, they off the deep end. Why you tripping off that hoe? That's some weak shit. Told him put me in the game cause I love defense. Yeah, put me in the game, coach. Fuck you thought, he let his colors fly. He ain't cut, we cut him off. Yeah, bounce out, let my fringes swing. Yeah, I'm a dog, and she say she find me interesting. Yeah, want me to call, put me in the game, coach. Fuck you thought, he let his colors fly. He ain't cut, we cut him off. Hey, bounce out, let my fringes swing. Yeah, I'm a dog, and she say she find me interesting. Yeah, want me to call, I ain't gotta settle, I got options, ma. No, I stand on business, my name not Tazar. I'll pop you with this pocket rock. Feed a nigga shells like a taco truck. Hey, this bitch got sound effects, it go I ain't trippin' on no drink, got bottles in the room. I'm in Durham, North Carolina, bitch, it's 12 a.m. Look at them, they ain't none of us and we ain't them. I told him put me in the game, coach. Fuck you thought, he let his colors fly. He ain't cut, we cut him off. Ay, so let my fringes swing. Yeah, I'm a dog. Hey, she say she find me interesting. Yeah, want me to call. Put me in the game, coach. Fuck you thought. Hey, he let his colors fly. He ain't cut, we cut him off. Hey, bounce out, let my fringes swing. Yeah, I'm a dog. Hey, she say she find me interesting. Want me to call. Yeah, yeah. UPK shit, man. You already know what it is. It's the 55th annual Passover, man. Turn up. We gon' do this shit the UPK way, not the other way. You hear me?
They killed, give me Isaiah 14 and 21. They did the same thing to my people. So you said that they put millions of my people. Yes, you said. Should a murderer go to jail for murdering? Absolutely. Should a thief go to jail when he steals? Absolutely. Should a robber pay back the money he robbed? Absolutely. So why shouldn't the white man pay for what he did? That's right. That's right.
One day you'll see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog.
I'm in a hell of a hole, was never expected to grow. Just obstacle set in the road, that a result of me selling my soul. The story I'm telling is cold, but yet it's what everyone knows. The white man's the devil is known. America was never a home, only a place of captivity, safe facility, hating, disfigure me. They claim that I'm lazy, be killing me. Maybe this slavery draining my energy. 400 years and counting, the trail of my tears is countless. Main fact that I'm here is astounding, but I can't wait till this shit is surrounded. Ready to tangle my king and the angel, be ready to rap. Crack in the sky, nuclear missiles and make it official. I'm capturing every cracker surviving. Put them all in chains where they need to be, slavery for me. And let the whole world see that with them in the cage and safer in the streets. Put the dog on a leash, get resolved for the beast. 144, get the ruler show, we could all be at peace. As soon as the trumpets are sound, your kingdom we busting it down. The only way justice is found, the time for your judgment is now.
One day you'll see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog.
Look, ain't no remorse in my blood slip. It won't be no compromise. Now it's time to feed the worms. Watch his body turn to flies. I clutch iron while you trust the lies. The next Glock I'm back gon' be Gen 5. I get it customized. And sending shots off like farewell. Praying payback come back around like a carousel. Still remember your Honda's words ringing in my head like bells. Said you in his body, you fit a Lord, fuck the cocktail. Triangle choke, apply pressure to the game like I did Vondale. Payback's a bitch in a dress, she a bombshell. Revenge is served cold, I just hope they making oxtail. Glock fresh out the box, I swear it got that new car smell. Made myself a target in a world of mad shooters. Devils design fire for our babies to pass through. In the day of our king's reign, I'll be overzealous. They bought my jealous, I bought brand new parabellums.
One day you'll see just how it feels. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog. Payback is a dog. Dog eats a dog.
Hey, Shalom. Lord and Shalom. All right, this is the Wednesday night history class. Check out Commanding General Yohanna's radio show, 2 a.m. UK time, Monday and Wednesday. We have classes here Monday through Friday. We have the law class on Monday, Brotherhood Tuesday, history on Wednesday, scripture breakdown Thursday, last one Kodesh Friday, and the On the Edge radio show. And you know what? So today we're going to go into a bit of history like we do every Wednesday. Any question, on topic, off topic, you can ask your question. No question is too small. No question is stupid. Ask your questions. But because we what time is it? Because we're a bit late, we're going to jump straight in. So Lucky, how about you guys? You got to get the slide, Bob Kishore.
Come on. The history of sugar in the Caribbean is also the history of slavery.
So now it says the history of sugar in the Caribbean is also the history of slavery. So always remember, sugar and history go hand in hand. So always remember, when you see someone putting sugar in their tea, also remember that tons of black people had to die in order for them to get the sugar. Go ahead.
And oppression on a scale that Europe had never known.
See, and it goes, this was oppression on a scale that Europe had never known. Because why? The English began to oppress the brothers that was, getting the... Oh, so lucky, let me go back a slide. That was getting the sugar and so forth. So they begin to oppress them. So always remember that sugar and slavery go hand in hand. Well, it went hand in hand back then. Because people had to go plant that sugar cane. They had to dig the holes to plant the sugar cane. They had to do all of that. They had to, when it was time that to harvest it, they had to cut it with machetes the right way. They had to cut it at the right length. Then they had to take it to the sugar house and put it in a hot pot with water. And then that's how they would separate the sugar crystals from the molasses. And then they would bag it up. And then they would package it. And then it would get shipped to Europe so white people can put it in their coffee. Yes, Lucky, go ahead.
Khan, it is a history of great fortunes amassed by white colonialists.
So now, white colonizers, they amassed the fortune of the sugar. Like sugar was a big thing at first in Barbados, was doing tobacco. And then the tobacco was turning up wet and not properly because they had better tobacco, I want to say, in Virginia. So then in Barbados, they dropped the tobacco trade and they started to move on to sugar because sugar made them a fortune. So Lucky, go ahead.
Khan, from Europe and the enslavement of millions during its boom in the Caribbean. It began with the introduction of the sugarcane plant by Columbus from the Canary Islands to Hispaniola.
So now they would bring the sugarcane plants and then they would plant it white because different soil produces different results. So they said, you know what, this soil looks fertile, let's try and plant this here. And they would plant it there and then you would end up cultivating that sugarcane. So now they brought this sugarcane plant to Hispaniola. That's Lucky, go ahead.
The soil proved suitable for the growing of sugarcane, and in 1516, the first sugar mill was established there. 2 years later, a contemporary account described fields of sugarcane that were wonderful to see.
So now they brought the sugarcane plant, and now they have fields of sugarcane that was wonderful to see, which lets you know how much sugarcane plants they actually brought, well, sugarcane seeds that they actually brought there. So Lucky, go ahead.
The cane as thick as a man's wrist, and as tall as the height of 2 men of medium stature.
So now 2 men of medium stature, and the sugarcane was as thick as a man's wrist. So that's what they was growing, and they was making a ton of money off it. That's one sugarcane we're talking about. Imagine they had thousands of millions. Go ahead.
Called by the Spaniards a trapiche. The first sugar mill was powered by horses that turned the wheel by moving steadily around a machine.
So now the horses would move steadily, and that's how they would cut the cane and so forth. Go ahead.
If horses or oxen were not available, slaves were used.
So now, if they didn't have horses or oxen to do it, like see how you tread the grain and all of those kind of things, how the oxes do it. Now they had horses and oxes doing it here. If those weren't available, they would have slaves doing it. So the slaves would have to turn those wheels, which is a job in itself, man. What people went through for them to eat sugar was a lot. That's lucky. Go ahead.
Khan. Later, Jews in Brazil invented a water-powered mill, which the Spaniards called an ingenio, which produced twice as much sugar as the trapiche. This method of producing sugar had one drawback. It was confined to areas with plenty of water. The cultivation of sugarcane spread to the English and French colonies in the Caribbean.
So now the Portuguese had it first, and now the Spanish, and then now it fled to the French and the European colonies. So they saw, damn, this sugar's making some money, man. Let us get involved. So it spread to them. They see how much money this sugar was making and said they're gonna make some money off it. Go ahead.
Sugar is a labor-intensive industry, and the Dutch, who had captured a part of Brazil from the Portuguese, were able to supply that labor. They had plenty of capitals. Amsterdam was as important as London was in raising the capital in the mid-17th century, but the merchants there tended to prefer the certain profit from trade to the uncertain one from colonization. Accordingly, 13 years later, when the Portuguese reoccupied Brazil and expelled the Dutch Jews,
the Portuguese occupied Brazil and they expelled the Dutch Jews. So those Dutch Jews there, they expelled the Dutch Jews. Go ahead.
Many moved to Barbados, where they invested.
Now, many of those Dutch Jews that was expelled from the Netherlands, and there's other Sephardic Jews, where Sephardic Jews is talking about your Spanish and your Portuguese Jews, whereas the Ashkenazi Jews are the ones that was from like Eastern Europe and so forth. But the Sephardic Jews was from like Spain, Portugal, North Africa, and so forth. So now these Dutch Jews, they was expelled, and what these Dutch Jews did, they then came to Barbados. Go ahead.
Where they invested their capital in the sugar industry.
So now the Dutch Jews, because they was expelled, they came to Barbados and they started getting involved in the sugar trade. The Dutch Jews started getting involved in slavery and the sugar trade and all of those kind of things. So they was kicked out of one land and said, all right, well, if we go to this next land, we can make money off of enslaving these black people. So these Dutch people went up there, started to buy land, estates, acres, and so forth. That's what these Dutch Jews started to do. So lucky, go ahead.
In 1690, Dalby Thomas, a historian, described the Dutch as mostly Jews and external promoters in search.
So lucky, Hacky, and if you could get me this slide, Baba Kushal. So now, the Dutch Jews, they began to go there and they began to make money off of what was going on in Barbados. So lucky, go ahead.
Kadwan Khan, they saw the potential of Barbados as a market for slaves and sugar-making machinery, financing the sugar planters.
So now they saw the potential in Barbados as a market for slaves and sugar-making machinery. So the Jewish man had his hand in slavery too. The Jewish man had people in slavery too. Go ahead.
Financing the sugar planters on the island would create a derivative demand for slaves.
So now they went there and created a market, man. And then this market that they created, now they needed slaves to take care of this market, because now sugar, who's gonna do all the work? Not them. Go ahead.
Kadwan Khan, the Dutch had no real interest in indentured servants.
So now the Dutch had no interest in indentured servants. Now that part's key. What is an indentured servant?
Is the indentured servant is it a slave, or is it someone that rules over the slaves?
So an indentured servant is not a slave. So now an indentured servant it's like a system. Someone agrees to work for someone for 7 years in exchange for benefits and so forth.
Right.
So an indentured servant is something like that. So now they didn't want indentured servants; they preferred slaves. Go ahead.
Khan.
Well, an indentured servant is someone that's there to pay off a debt or something like that. So now there's a difference between a slave and an indentured servant. But Lucky, go ahead.
Khan. The Dutch had no real interest in indentured servants as a dominant system of labor organization on the island. Although they had engaged in the indentured servant trade from Ireland in the 1630s.
So now they're engaged in the indentured servant trade from Ireland. So now a lot of the white people from Ireland, they was indentured servants. Some people call them white slaves, but they was indentured servants. They had a better deal than you because why? They was just a servant for 4 to 7 years. Most of them was what? Prisoners of war. Now, did they get treated badly? Yes, but they were slaves like we are. They was indentured servants. They had benefits that we didn't have. Afterwards, they could either stay there or they could go back and settle and get jobs and so forth. We couldn't. That's Lucky, go ahead.
So Lucky, so these indentured and these Edomites today still go on about we were slaves too. We were slaves like you, and it's nothing like what we went through. Nothing like it. There's no comparison to it at all. And they always use it like, we were slaves too. Everybody was slaves. No, they weren't slaves like us. None of them was. Salaki, other one.
So while there's a term white slaves where quote unquote they would say, well, we went in slavery, but a lot of theirs there was prisoners of war, there was indentured servants, and then some of them was on the field. So some of them was cutting sugarcane and tobacco and all of those things. So a lot of them was sent to the Caribbean to work, forced labor as well. A lot of them, but they didn't go through what we went through. Their quote unquote slavery had an end, whereas ours didn't. Yes, go ahead.
And so like they had a choice, didn't they? As well, like you just said.
Because a lot of them was prisoners of war. So if they was causing in England, they were sent to Barbados, and that's their prison sentence.
At the end, didn't you say something about they can, after the end of the thing that they've served, they can either do what? Go one way or the other, right?
Well, some of them could go back. That's the indentured servants. But a lot of the prisoners of war, they didn't have no end to their sentence. So they was just there as prisoners of war, probably up until the day they died. So they would be on the field.
So just like us then.
Because their treatment was a lot better than ours. What they was doing, what we was doing, but they would be more like, back then, they would be more like your house slaves. So they were still doing work, but not on the scale that we was. So they were still out there in the field, but not on the scale that we was. They was out there on the field because of their own crimes and their behavior. We was outside on the field because we was black, so there's a difference. We was on the field because we was black. They're on the field because they committed crimes, they're prisoners of war, and it's white on white crime. So theirs ain't the same as ours. Now, if black people enslaved us, we wouldn't complain. We'd just be like, yo, we'd speak about, black people need to do better. White people tell us, well, white people was in slavery too. That don't mean nothing to me. You need to speak to white people about that. That's what they need to do. They need to speak to their own people. If they have an issue with them being enslaved because that's their people. Now me, I'm a black man that's not supposed to be under your rule. So I'm going to talk about what happened to us. Whatever happened to you, I don't care about none of that. That's you need to speak on your behalf about that. But we're going to speak on our behalf, man. Listen, I don't care if one black man was a slave and there was 10 million white slaves. I'm speaking on behalf of that one black man. Don't try and water it down with we was in slavery too. No one cares, man. If you feel that, if you cared about you being in slavery, you would speak about it. They only speak about it when we speak about it. Understand this, that when they say that they was in slavery too, that should lead them to the next point, that the oppressor is the devil, that he even enslaves his own people. So them saying that, trying to justify it, doesn't make no sense. You only make the oppressor seem worse. Because if he enslaves his own people, what kind of man is he? Enslaves his own people. So whenever they say that, you just let them know, well, do you agree that that man's the devil because he even enslaved his own people? They say that to us thinking that's going to make us say, oh, true. No, that's going to make me say he's more of a devil because he even enslaves his own people.
Khan. Good one, Khan. As we have seen in Captain West's narrative, chapter 5, the leading position of the Dutch in the slave trade meant that they saw indentured servitude as inimical to their new world economic and social interests. Besides being Jewish, Salakia the one. Salakia. Salakia the one. The leading position of the Dutch slave trade meant that they saw indentured servitude as inimical to their new world economic and social interests. Besides being Jewish, the Dutch merchants who ended up in Barbados were not allowed by law to employ English servants themselves.
See? So this is what I'm saying. The Jewish wasn't allowed to employ English servants. There's a key word there. It called them English servants, man. They called them slaves. Then the Dutch Jews weren't allowed to employ English servants. Go ahead.
So like he didn't call them slaves. He said English servants.
Exactly.
There's a difference, right?
There's a big difference. A man that's a servant, he's on the payroll and he's treated okay. That English, there's a difference between an English servant and a black slave. The two ain't the same. An English servant, imagine this. The Englishman put in law that a Jewish man ain't allowed to employ an English servant, meaning you ain't allowed to rule over an English servant, man.
Right.
You're allowed to be a boss of an English servant. Go ahead.
Kadawan Khan. Right. They were allowed only African slaves, meaning Israelite slaves, right?
Oh, but imagine that.
Slaves, you know.
Like English servants, they're allowed to rule over slaves, which we know was Israelites because they was taken to these places. So imagine this: the Englishman that was poor, the Jewish man weren't allowed to rule over him, but the Jewish man was allowed to rule over African slaves. Now we know they're talking about Israelites, but they're going to say African. But I'll read that part one more time.
Salaka the one?
Read that part for me one more time.
Neither were they allowed to buy indentured of early settlers, nor later the Irish or other white. Hold on.
Go up a bit. You skip some. Go up a bit.
Oh, okay. Oh, I did. Yeah, Salakia. In Barbados, they were not allowed by law to employ English servants themselves.
So now, by law, the Jewish man wasn't allowed to employ English servants because they didn't like Jews. So the Jews weren't allowed to rule over English servants. Go ahead.
Kadawan Khan. Neither were they allowed to buy the indentures of early settlers.
And they weren't allowed to buy indentured servants, meaning the Irish and so forth. It's from Scotland and so forth. Go ahead.
Nor later of Irish or other white.
Oh, no, you skip the part about the black slave.
Oh, I'm sorry. No, the black slave is the African slaves. You mean?
Yeah. Let me get that part.
That's what I'm coming to. I just went back a bit to no. Nor later of Irish or other white slaves.
So now there wasn't. Listen, in the Caribbean, when white people say they was in slavery too, what kind of slavery was they in? Because they wasn't allowed to. The white slaves wasn't allowed to be ruled over by Dutch Jews, because the white man understood like, nah, we're not having them rule over our English brothers, man. Go ahead.
God, they were allowed only African slaves, man.
Oh, so imagine this. There wasn't allowed white slaves, but there was allowed African slaves, which is Israelites. So now, this is how you know when white people say they was in slavery, there's a difference, because English people didn't allow the Dutch Jews to rule over English slaves. They didn't allow them to rule over Irish slaves and indentured servants. But these Dutch Jews was only allowed to rule over black people. Which lets you know, white people slavery it was two different things. They can rule over us, but they can't rule over them. And that's documented. That was in law. That was in law, man. Lucky, go ahead.
Right. Can't, sir. Sugarcane had been introduced to Barbados by a Dutchman in 1637.
See? And these damn Dutch Jews introduced sugarcane to the Caribbean by what? Carrying the seeds there and planting it in the fertile soil. And those like, oh, this soil is good for growing things. Like sometimes you might have a seed that's excellent, but the soil you plant it in ain't really that good. So it don't grow. So what do? You need to take these seeds other places and see where it grows. And the Caribbean was fertile. The Caribbean was very fertile, so they took their seeds there and they seen it grow and said, yo, we need to get slaves to take care of all this, man. And the slaves ended up being us. Go ahead.
So like just a quick question if I could. So England, right? The English, right? They nearly took over 3 parts of the world, right? Am I correct with that? How did they do that? 3 parts of this little England, you know, small on the map. How did they actually? It was. I mean, do you know any history on that? Any other one? How did they get to go around, conquer so much of the world, and make the world?
While it is with England, England had the largest empire, so that's how they was able to do these things. So the British Empire, they had the greatest empire. The British Empire is larger than the Roman Empire, so they was able to go and conquer, and they was ruthless with it as well. If you look up the British Empire, they didn't play no games. They'd come to your land, look at it. This is ours. Like if you're talking about the devil, the British Empire is like you don't really hear much about the French Empire, Portuguese, Spanish Empire. You hear about the British Empire. That's why there's that saying, the sun never sets on the British Empire. Why? They would take one land, send the army somewhere else, take that land, send the army somewhere else, take that land. And then if they were stronger than the French and the Portuguese, whatever lands the French and the Portuguese would have, England would just go to them and say, yo, move up, man, we're taking this now.
Like that.
So they would let other countries discover it and see that it makes money, and they would step in. What they would do is just send more soldiers than you've got. You got 1,000 soldiers, they're sending 10,000 soldiers.
Wow, like that. Okay. So when you say empire, yeah, do you mean like soldiers and an army? When you say empire, they got the biggest empire, you say, right?
So when they say empire, meaning they had the most colonies. So now, not even on the numbers basis. Let's say England had 1,000 men to 6,000 enemies. They would find a way to subdue those 6,000 to be afraid of them. So what you'll find is when they step foot like on the island in the Caribbean, there would be more slaves than them, but they're so strategic that the people are afraid because of the weapons that they would have.
Right.
They will do that, and then money buys power, man. Once they get money, they get power. They get ships. Imagine you see a man. Forget seeing the men. Just imagine looking at all the ships that he's got. Just think, if you go to war with a man and you've got one gun and you see this man with a machine gun, loads of them, you're gonna be like, wow, when I run out, I'm going this handgun. So you're gonna see all of that and you're gonna be fearful because of those things. So yeah, the British Empire near enough embodies the white man being the devil, the empire.
Okay. Yeah, that's heavy. Four for that. Slovakia. Sugarcane, was grown at first simply as fodder for cattle and crushed to make sweet drink for local use.
See, and now sugarcane was first crushed to make sweet drinks for local use. Go ahead.
And fodder, what's fodder? Is that like something for the cows them to eat, cattle to eat? Like crushed it?
I don't know. You can look it up.
I can't even look it up on this one, you know. The one.
Let me put it up for you.
Yeah.
What the hell that is? Let me check. Cows. It's cow what? Cow fodder. Oh yeah, it says food, especially dried hay or straw for cattle and other livestock.
Oh, okay, so they crushed it down to give it. Okay, yeah. For cattle and crushed to make sweet drink for local use. The planters had no knowledge of how to turn the cane into sugar. Sorry, where was this again? What land was this?
Oh, this is in Barbados.
Right, so black people there didn't know how to. They're saying black people there didn't know how to.
No. This is talking about the planters.
Oh, so the planters had no knowledge of how to turn the. Oh, right, okay, right, I got you. These are the Dutchmen, right? Dutch people then. That came over.
This would be the Dutch and the English because a lot of them was there.
Right, I got you. The planters had no knowledge of how to turn the cane into sugar. Richard Ligon, 1657, gave an account of the beginnings of the sugar revolution on the island. As cultivation started in 1642, his is an almost contemporary account of its introduction.
Now, this one's going to give you an introduction of how it all started. This is a contemporary account. So, Lucky, go ahead.
Right, Khan. At the time we landed on this island, which in the beginning of September 1647, we were informed partly of those planters we found there, and partly by our own observation, that the great work of sugar making was but newly practiced by the inhabitants there.
They say sugar making was newly practiced by the inhabitants there. Let's Lucky, go ahead.
Right, so they might have learned it from them then, the people then that was there. Some of the most industrious men, having gotten plants from Pernambouc, a place in Brazil.
So now it said earlier that Columbus brought the sugarcane plant from Brazil. So they brought it. So that's how they got the plant from there. So they moved them. They had them seeds. They started moving it and planting it in the Caribbean, and it grew. Go ahead.
Calm. And made trial of them at the Barbados.
So now the trial ran it in the Barbados. Go ahead.
And finding them to grow.
So now the trial ran it in Barbados. They planted the seeds and said, "Let's see if these grow." And they planted more. And then the growth. Lucky, go ahead.
We planted more and more as they grew and multiplied on the place, till they had such a considerable number as they were worth the while to set up a very small ingenio, and so make trial what sugar could be made upon the soil.
So now the reason
Can I read that again?
This is old because this is his account. This is old English. So the soil is for while is soil. So all of that is just old English. That's Lucky Haban, you guys could get me this one.
Khan, the secrets of the work being not well understood, the sugars they made were very inconsiderable and little worth. But about the time I left the island, which was in 1650, they were much bettered, for then had the skill to know when the canes were ripe.
So now over time they learned to know when the sugar cane was ripe. So understand this, not everyone can just grow certain things because you don't know when it's ripe, when it's not ripe. You're just thinking, yeah, this is sugar. I don't know if you've ever tasted sugar cane that's not really ripe. Go certain places, especially certain places where they don't know what they're doing. You can buy two sugar canes and they don't taste the same. One's ripe and one's not ripe. The ones that ain't ripe it feels like it tastes like there's no sugar in there. So you have to catch it when it's ripe. So Lucky, go ahead.
Which was not. They were grown greater proficiencies both in boiling and curling them, and had learnt the knowledge of making them white, but not so excellent as those they make in Brazil. Nor is there any likelihood they can ever make such.
So this man wrote this account, but that account was premature because afterwards they mastered sugarcane. So Lucky, go ahead.
As the events have shown, Ligon was certainly wrong on this last point. The sugar industry became not only the staple one in Barbados.
So now sugarcane became the staple of Barbados. Now, when you see Barbados, you're thinking the staple of it is Caribbean and Rihanna, nah. This whole sugarcane, man. This became the staple of Barbados. Go ahead.
But the island itself became known as the Sugar Island.
See, and that was its nickname, and the Sugar Island. Imagine it produced so much sugar that Barbados was known as the Sugar Island. Today you call it Barbados, but back then they nicknamed it the Sugar Island. Why? Because so much sugar came from there. And who was making all of this sugar? Black people, man, with the exception of a few white people. So okay, go ahead.
However, Ligon was correct in foreseeing the expansion of the large plantation at the cost of the smaller one. I believe when the small plantation of the poor men's land, 10, 20, or 30 acres, which are too small to lay sugar plantations, be brought up by great men and put into plantations of 5, 6, or 700 acres.
Imagine, so now they wanted this much sugarcane that they said, nah, them small lands ain't no good. We need bigger plantations of 700 acres, man. 700 acres is a lot of space. That's lucky, go ahead.
That 2/3 of the
only asked for 40 acres, man. And these devils had 700 acres just for sugarcane. That's lucky, go ahead.
That 2/3 of the island will be fit for plantations of sugar, which will make it one of the richest spotations on earth under the sun. The transition to sugar growing changed the face of Barbadian society.
So now all that sugar changed Barbados, man. Go ahead.
The small tobacco planters were wiped out, and large.
So now, remember last week we went over that they used to do tobacco in Barbados. Now the tobacco planters are wiped out. Why? Because they got this new thing which is making more money than tobacco, sugar. Because now tobacco was doing better in Virginia, and Virginia was what? A British colony also. So there's you know what? We'll make tobacco in Virginia. Can you imagine how much money the oppressor was making? You got tobacco booming in Virginia. You got sugar booming here. You got cotton booming elsewhere. The British was making a whole lot of money off of different business ventures, man. All slave related, but different ventures. Let's lucky go ahead.
And large sugar plantations of between 100 and 500 acres took over. The Sephardic Jews brought their know-how of sugar milling, their capital, and their slaves.
The Sephardic Jews is like your Portuguese, Spanish, could be North African. They just call them Sephardic Jews. Go ahead.
So it's like the other one.
Go ahead.
Okay, Sephardi Jews. Who are they? Other one. Who are they?
They're just Jews from Portugal, Spain, some from North Africa.
Oh, can't. All right.
It's the region that those from. The Iberian Peninsula mainly.
Isn't it funny though, other one, yeah? They know how to put Sephardi Jews and other Jews, but as soon as it comes to us, right? African slaves. They kind of know the difference, right? Between naming who the real Jews are and who the fake Jews are and giving them our name, and we're taking some name as, some African slaves. Kind of ironic.
I hear what you're saying. So now, these ones here, these would be Sephardic Jews. So the reason to put Sephardic Jews here is to let you know this is different from the Ashkenazi Jews. So these ones, Sephardic Jews, I believe they're the different dialect. And some half Spanish, whatever they would speak. Some Spanish and Portuguese and whatever else. So these Jews came to Barbados because they was kicked out of, if you know anything about Queen Isabella and so forth, they started kicking them Jews out of their lands, man. That's lucky, go ahead.
And their slaves with them to Barbados. Wherever they went, they brought with them their skills as businessmen.
See, and their people brought those businessmen. So they came there and started enslaving people also. Go ahead.
And their experience as sugar planters, refiners, and brokers.
See, so now the Jewish man brought his sugar planting skills to Barbados. Go ahead.
They also brought with them the machinery needed for sugar refining and advanced money on long credit to the planters to buy it. They taught them the art of planting, harvesting, and milling, and most important of all, sold them their black slaves.
Oh, they did what?
Sold them their black slaves.
So they taught all these things, and then they sold their black slaves, man. They sold them their black slaves. Imagine this man gets a nice name, Sephardic Jews, and you just get black slave. That's what they call you, man. That's lucky. Go ahead.
Can't. Again, either on long credit or against the first refined
Imagine
sugar.
they sold black men on credit, man. Like, yo, check this one, man. A man will take a slave and say, yo, give me this slave, and then when he works enough money out, I'll pay you.
And then
Credit. A man will take a slave on credit, like, yeah, don't worry, just send them to me. He's gonna work for 2 months, and the money that I get, I'll give you the money from that he made. Imagine this. You're working to buy, you're working to pay for another man, to pay another man's debt. Imagine that. You're working so this man can own you. That's how it would work, man. You don't have your credit.
And so like, you know, if I may, right? And they say, pull up your socks, right? Just get on with life, man. You're just complaining, you know. Everyone can get a job. Everyone can have a head. You can have it. Stop complaining. You black people are always complaining about you can't get a job and this, that, and the third. It's right here, man. Right here. This is the reason why we're where we are. And they're always saying, pull up your socks and stop complaining. Because of this here. It's like, you know.
We're all the way slaves, black slaves at that. And now you're working so another man can get something for free. And that's just how they've been treating us. The Jewish man would buy us, sell us. So whenever the Jewish man comes up and makes that like, yeah, I'm a Jew and you're a Jew. Back then, I don't care if you was a black Jew back then, you're still going into slavery no matter what you believe, man.
That's right.
Being Jewish couldn't save you back then. So lucky, go ahead.
Before the advent of sugar, that's the end of the paragraph.
So lucky, Hakim, if you could get me this one.
There were only a few hundred black slaves on the island purchased from Dutch slave traders.
And now it says there was a few hundred black slaves on the island purchased from Dutch slave traders. Even the Dutch was involved in selling slaves, man. All these European nations was involved in selling slaves. That's lucky, go ahead.
It was during the early days of sugar planting that the supply of indentured servants began to run out.
So now indentured servants began to run out, meaning they didn't have enough indentured servants. They didn't have enough indentured servants for the amount of sugar that they had. So the indentured servants was the Edomites that was in Barbados. Go ahead.
It was during the early days of sugar planting that the supply of indentured servants began to run out. Many signed indentures in the early days of the colony.
So it says many signed indentures in the early days of the colony. Them was indentured servants. We wasn't indentured servants, man. Go ahead.
So that's why I don't know why they keep saying that. Irish and black. Like they've got something the same as us. They got nothing the same as us. They were indentured. Some of them were Irish, right? Other one. Many who signed the indentures in the early days of the colony had now finished their indentures and
they're now what?
They now finished their indentures and were free men and women. That's what I'm saying.
Read that one more time.
Yeah, can't answer. Many who signed indentures in the early days of the colony had now finished their indentures and were free men.
They finished their indentures and was free men and women. Imagine that, they got free men. Go ahead.
Others had died of cholera.
What is? I can't see it from my
I
side.
know that word.
What word is it? Is it dysentery?
CHOLERA.
Cholera.
What's that other one?
Hold on, let me check. I never can remember it. I know it's some kind of infection. Yeah, that's diarrhea.
Oh shit. Okay. Right.
I think that and dysentery is interchangeable.
You can die from diarrhea.
Yeah. Yo, back in the days, loads of kings used to die from that shit. Imagine back then. You drink a water with bacteria in there.
Oh.
Get me? You see back then. Back then, everyone's defecating and people are throwing it in the river, and you're drinking from the river.
No.
Nowadays, you got Severn Trent where the water's clean, the purified. Back then, there weren't none of that stuff. Back then, you get bitten by insects. Remember, back then, there weren't no such thing as an injection. There weren't no TB injection. There weren't no tablets to stop you from having the runs. There weren't none of those. Back then, you get the sweats. There's nothing to stop it. Back then, you got no air conditioning, nothing, man. Back then, people are dying from a fever, from a flu. So yeah, over time, medical knowledge increases, and then the doctors.
Right.
So a lot of, put it this way, in this day and age now, if they had the medical teams that we have now back then, a lot of them would have lived a lot longer.
Definitely.
Even back then, child mortality was high. The children used to die young if you didn't make it past a certain age.
Wow.
So yeah, over time, medical knowledge becomes better. Like now, there's some things where they ain't found the cure for it, but eventually one day they'll find the cure for it. One day they'll be like, oh, that's the cure for it. And then 1,000 years time from now, someone's gonna look back and say, what? They didn't have no cure for cancer. All you do is take this tablet, and then so forth. So usually those things happen. Yeah, they have like a lot of it in like Ethiopia and so forth. So they have their care is terrible. This is why when you go to places like Egypt, you don't really want to be eating the meat. Apparently, everyone that goes to Egypt, they end up sick.
Really?
Right? Everyone that goes to Egypt ends up with the runs, man.
Okay.
Everyone that goes there, they end up with the runs. They go on their holiday, they enjoy the first 2 days, then the bed bound for the rest of the holiday.
Wow.
So the runs that come out the room.
Food poisoning, basically.
Yeah, because I feel like certain countries don't have no temperature regulation of how to cook their meat.
Oh, yeah, okay, right.
Certain countries, people don't drink tap water. Like over here, we can drink tap water because we're used to it. But a man from abroad, I wouldn't advise him to come and drink our tap water. So I'll be like, why? Because the bacteria in their stomach ain't really used to it. We're used to it. We live here, so it's like I put it this way: it's like a man in Jamaica or Africa. He don't put on no sunscreen. If you go there, I advise you to put on sunscreen.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Same thing.
Jamaica wakes up and says, "Let me put on this sunscreen. This 50-50 proof." He ain't doing that. But if you go there, you can't do what he does.
Right.
You have to put on that sunscreen. Your skin's gonna peel, whereas he's used to it. So certain things that you're used to, you want to stick to. Certain things you're not used to, you want to take extra precautions.
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Smallpox or dysentery? What's that? Dysentery?
Diarrhea as well.
Oh, same thing, yeah? Okay. The Civil War in England created
diarrhea and vomiting and so forth. It's a load of diarrhea and vomiting. So that's what a ton of the slaves would die from. Go ahead.
Man, they went through hell in them days. The Civil War in England created a shortage of ships.
So the Civil War in England was between Oliver Cromwell and so forth. That Civil Wars in England. Go ahead.
Then was that other one? Do you know the year?
Of the Civil War?
Roughly, yeah. Just roughly.
Like, I want to say it was like around 1640s. Might be like 1640s, around that time.
16, 17.
So they had the Civil War. The Civil War, and then
it's only 9 years ago.
People that was in support of Charles I against the people that was in support of Oliver Cromwell being the Lord Protector.
16, 16, okay, right, I got you, Salaki.
So when you kill a king, when you kill a king, the king has followers, and he has men that will ride for him. So once you kill a king, you don't just kill one man. You have to pretty much take out everyone that supported him. So they was having these kind of wars. So there was a shortage of ships because they're fighting and at war at this time.
Right. And men who would normally have signed as indentured servants were caught up in the conflict.
See, so men that would usually be indentured servants, they was caught up in the conflict. So they couldn't get these indentured servants because these indentured servants was too busy fighting in the civil war in England. Go ahead.
And the men who would normally have signed indentured servants were caught up in the conflict. To ease the labor situation, the Dutch Jews, with their experience of transporting African slaves to Brazil, now turned to importing them to Barbados. However,
so read that part one more time.
And the men who would normally have signed up as indentured servants were caught up in the conflict. To ease the labor situation, the Dutch Jews, with their experience of transporting African slaves to Brazil, now turned to importing them to Barbados.
See, so the brothers in Brazil are Israelites, man. They was importing them brothers to Brazil, and then they started importing them to Barbados. Go ahead.
However, the planters in the early days of the sugar revolution found them intractable and difficult to train.
So now they were saying these niggas is difficult to train, man. They were saying these black people is difficult to train. Go ahead.
Particularly for work in the mills. They cried out for white labor.
Oh, so imagine this. They didn't even want black slaves, they wanted white labor. Because they said, black people are too hard to train, man. We want these white people instead. Go ahead.
Cromwell, through his victories in England, Wales, Scotland, and Ireland, solved their problem by shipping prisoners of war to Barbados.
See, so that's how you white people ended up on the plantations, because Oliver Cromwell shipped his prisoners of war to Barbados. So the white people that was fighting against Oliver Cromwell in that civil war, he said, you know what, they want white labor. Let's send these prisoners of war. So that's how they started sending these white people to Barbados. Go ahead.
This not only solved the problem of what to do with a potentially seditious population, but also earned money for the Commonwealth.
And now this earned money for the Commonwealth. Why? Because this made Oliver Cromwell money. So this helped the Commonwealth, and this helped England get money because he sent prisoners of war that would have just been in England, probably just get beheaded in England. He said, you know what, if we send them there, we can make more money for England. So he sent them there, and now he's making money for England. Go ahead.
Khan. These prisoners were not sent as indentured servants, but were sold in perpetuity. Can you find what that word mean, other one, please, if you could? Because I can't find it on this computer right now.
What word are you looking at?
It's called PER. Or select Abaniga can get it if you want. If you could.
I think it might be on his phone. Yeah, on your phone, Abaniga.
So can you get this word?
Where are you reading?
So it's PERRPETUITY.
Oh yeah, that means forever. It means forever or less than forever.
But sold in forever to the sugar planters of Barbados. Oh,
so they were meant to be there, just there for good, basically.
They were there for good, yeah.
So these prisoners of war, he just sold them there for good. Why? Because you don't want a prisoner of war to come back free to your country. So what do? You send them somewhere to where there won't be no problem for you no more. So he sent them there for that reason. So the ones that lived there for good, that ended up staying there, they was prisoners of war. They weren't just some random white men that just ended up in slavery because they was white. No, that didn't happen. There was prisoners of war, so that's why they ended up there.
Similar to what they're doing now with Ghana, innit? They're trying to send our prisoners over here to Ghana, isn't it?
You mean Rwanda?
Rwanda, Salakia, yeah, Rwanda, yeah. Kind of
Yes,
the same.
but while it is, because with them, they're just going to be prisoners, but then they get to come home at the end of their sentence. Whereas this one here, they were sent there to go work on the field. So they were sent there to go do the same work as the slaves. So they reduced them to, there was levels above us, but they weren't far above us because they was prisoners of war. So they sent them there. They said, you know what, these can help build the Commonwealth. So instead of having them in England to form another uprising, they just shipped them out. Said, yeah, just.
Oh, right, okay.
So they went to Barbados and was on the field.
Right, they became the first white slaves in relatively modern times.
See, so now that's where the term white slaves comes from. So when they tell you that us white people went into slavery, remind them that they was prisoners of war.
Yeah.
Remind them that they went there because they was prisoners of war and they couldn't behave themselves. Remind them that they didn't go into slavery because they was white. That's the difference. They didn't go into slavery because they was white. They went into slavery because they was prisoners of war and was fighting in the civil war against Oliver Cromwell. So that's why they went into slavery and they was prisoners of war. So there's a difference between us. We went into slavery because we was black. They didn't ever go into slavery because of the color of their skin. So when they tell you that white people went into slavery too, their slavery wasn't because of the color of their skin. Their slavery was because of the civil war in England. The two have nothing to do with each other. One is because of the color of his skin. One is because of the uprising. So if they had behaved themselves in England, they would have never had white slavery in Caribbean. Always remind them that their one's not race related. Their one is due to the uprising and the civil wars. That's why they went into slavery. It's nothing to do with them going into slavery because of the color of their skin. So always remind them that, okay, if you want to speak about white slavery, why did you use that word slavery first of all? Was it because of the color of the skin? I'm going to say no. And say to them, okay, then we on about two different arguments. That's lucky. Go ahead.
And it kind of says something up here, other one, on this next line here. Slaves, in the true sense of the word, own body and soul by their masters.
This is slaves in the true sense of the word. Their masters own their soul and their body. Listen, man, our masters owned us, man. They owned our soul, our body, our spirit, everything that we did. They owned every single part of us. Go ahead.
And that's why it's like the one they say slaves in the true sense of the word. In other words, making a distinction, right?
Meaning they ain't true slaves. The slaves, but they're not true slaves like us. Well, it is what they was going through was hardship, so they called it white slavery because they're doing something that they didn't want to do. So they call it white slavery. But if you know anything about Edomites, they complain about everything. So because it's anything that they don't want to do, they would call it white slavery. Even though theirs wasn't. Theirs was just, you're prisoners of war. You're over here and you're going to work. That's what theirs was. That's lucky. Go ahead.
Other one, Khan. Colonial A.B. Ellis, or Colonial A.B. Ellis, who did considerable research on the subject of white slaves, published his findings in a magazine named Argosy in 1883. In an article entitled White Slaves and Bondservants in the Plantations, he wrote, "Few but readers of old colonial papers and records are aware that a lively trade was carried on between England and the plantations, as the colonies were then called. From 1647 to 1690, the political prisoners were sold to the colonists.
So it says the political prisoners were sold to the colonists. So understand this, white people wasn't sold because they was white. They were sold because there was political prisoners. Go ahead.
For various terms of years, sometimes for life.
Sometimes for life. Now, nowhere did it say they were sold into slavery because they was white. Now, you were sold into slavery because you was black. Your slavery was racial. Theirs wasn't. So that's the difference between us and them. So whenever next time an Edomite goes to you and says, well, white people went into slavery too, you need to say and say, well, why did they go into slavery? Was it because of the color of their skin? They're going to say no. Now, we went into slavery. Why? Because of the color of our skin, man. They didn't go into slavery because of the color of their skin. Theirs was because what? Those political prisoners.
Right.
Meaning theirs was justified. You're a criminal. Of course, you're going to have to do some work. Of course, if you cause an uprising and civil wars, you're going to get shipped out of the country. That's why they were shipped out of the country. Theirs had nothing to do with race. Lucky, go ahead.
Old records in the Barbados Museum and Historical Society files show that, according to the planters, estimates Barbados alone received thousands of prisoners of war.
See, and Barbados alone received thousands of prisoners of war. Go ahead.
That's the end of that other one.
Lucky, how about you guys? If you could get me this one.
Khan of war who were regarded as white slaves. A survey carried out in 1650, even before the advent of the Irish white slaves there, showed that the island had a population of 20,000 white men.
So now they have a population of 20,000 white men. Go ahead.
The first evidence we have of white men being sold is from Wales, where 240 Welsh bachelors were sold in May 1648 for a shilling each, and
So they're selling these white men for a shilling each. Go ahead.
And shipped to Barbados. 10,000 prisoners were taken at the Battle of Worcester, mainly Scots with some German mercenaries.
Now they started to get Germans and Scottish people, and all of these was prisoners of war. But go ahead.
They were marched to London, and of those who survived, about 1,500 were shipped to Barbados to be sold, presumably by auction to the planters there.
So now these men, they were shipped to Barbados to be sold. Go ahead.
A German soldier of fortune, Heinrich von Auschwitz, gave an account of conditions there. He mucked out of pig houses, swept out slave quarters, which he described as the most demeaning job for any white man.
Now white men are complaining about the work that they have to do there. They're saying they have to sweep out houses, and they're saying this job is inhumane for any white man. What they're basically saying is, yo, these jobs is for black men. Why the hell are we doing them? That's what they're basically saying. Go ahead.
And worked in the fields, in the cane fields under a sweltering sun for 12 hours a day.
Now they was complaining because why? They're working in the sun for 12 hours a day. So now they're prisoners of war, and of course they're going to call this slavery because they're doing something that they don't want to do. Go ahead.
With an hour's break for a lunch of boiled maize. Von Auschwitz was lucky. After 18 months of sweated labor, he was ransomed by some German merchants for 800 pounds of sugar.
So now this to save this man from slavery, they brought him out of slavery for like what? 800 pounds of sugar. Whereas try buying a black man out of slavery, man, listen, that shit's rarely gonna happen. These white German men was able to buy themselves out of slavery. Not all of them, some of them. Go ahead.
And returned to Germany.
And he returned to Germany. He had a happy ending in the end. Now you tell me about any of these black men that was on the plantation and ended up getting free and was able to return back home and minimal. Whereas these men was able to do a few years in the field and return back to Germany. We didn't get them privileges that they have. So go ahead.
Where he wrote an account of his sufferings. Nothing further is known of the 19 fellow German missionaries.
The other men that went into slavery with him, what they call white slavery, nothing is known of them men. So lucky Alban, if you could get me this one.
They were transported in appalling conditions, kept locked under decks amongst horses. On their arrival in May 1656, the master of the ship sold your miserable petitioners to most inhumane and barbarous persons for 1,550 pounds weight of sugar apiece, as the goods and chattels of Martin Noel and Major Thomas Adeline of London. So, let me read that again, other one, please. I didn't quite get that.
All right, so this part right here, what it's basically saying is it's letting you know that these Edomites is going to do a petition. So they're going to speak to like the council because they're upset with the white slavery.
Right.
So they're going to speak to the council and say, yo, this is inhumane and blah, 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 blah. So
right,
that's
okay.
where they are right now.
Right. And did they have to pay for that? What was that for? 1,550 pounds of weight of sugar a piece.
So hold on, you can read it. Now this is talk. So it's talking about when it was locked under the deck. Hold on, let me see if we can read it from here. It says soldier measure petitions to most inhumane and barbarous persons. So hold on, one second.
Hold on, Carl.
Yes, Lucky, go ahead, Hakan.
Hold on, Carl. You want to read it again, yeah?
Yeah, go ahead.
They were transported in appalling conditions, kept locked under decks amongst horses. On their arrival in May 1656, the master of the ship sold your miserable petitioners.
So now the people that was petitioning, the master of the ship sold them. That's what that's talking about.
Right. To the most inhumane and barbarous persons.
So now they were sold to the most inhumane people ever. That's what it's saying. The most barbarous persons for the sum of pounds of sugar.
Right. Okay. Their petitions, right? They're basically their complaints.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. They say, okay. Right. Okay. A piece as goods and chattels of Martin Noel and Major Thomas Adeline of London. The petition goes on that those sold were the aged of 67 years old.
So 67 is 67. Yeah, 70 is So score is 20.
Yeah.
67. Go ahead.
Divine officers and gentlemen, they were marched to the plantations where they endured the most unsupportable captivity, grinding at the mills, attending the furnaces, or digging in the scorching island, having nothing to feed on, notwithstanding their hard labor.
So now the person's complaining about all this hard work that he has to do, like we ain't been doing it for years. Go ahead.
Normal. They still do it today, don't they? Let other people do their work, their supervisors. They're doing nothing. They're doing nothing, and they'll just let everyone else. They'll act like they're doing something. Today they still do the same thing. It's like it.
Yeah.
But potato roots, nor anything to drink but water. So that's what they're complaining about. What do black people have otherwise?
They can only. Sorry, say that again.
What did black people get to eat when they were slaves?
They had a spoon of water. They'll get a teaspoon of water, and this one here is getting a glass and is complaining that there's nothing to drink but water.
You gotta be joking. With a spoon, not a spoon. A spoon of water. Other one. What do you mean a spoon? What type of spoon? What type of spoon? Is it them teaspoons?
No, it's a teaspoon of water.
Teaspoon of water?
Yeah, so they'll give you a teaspoon of water on the slave ships, and then whatever other food they would have, that's what they'll give you. So they're giving people like a teaspoon of water, some nonsense like that. So they'll do that to preserve the water. And black people never complain, but this man here is complaining that there's nothing else to drink other than water. And that's these Edomites here, they always complain. And what I realized is with these slaveries today, these Edomites complain so much that the other Edomites just make them the manager so they stop complaining. I realized in a slave, if you don't complain, you don't ever become the manager. Seems like you have to complain to become the manager, because they put it this way, why would you make a hard worker a manager if it means once he becomes a manager, you lose a hard worker? You're better off making the lazy man a manager because he does nothing anyway. Now, you're not going to make your hardest worker that works hard the manager, because that means what? He ain't going to work hard no more. But Salaki, go ahead.
Salaki. The petition continues to describe the treatment by their Christian masters as being brought and sold.
And now the oppressor's crying, and now he's put Christian in brackets because he's saying, yo, how can these Christians treat us like this? Now the white man's getting a taste of his own medicine. Now these oppressors is getting a taste of their own medicine. They're upset like, yo, how can a Christian treat us like this? When we were saying, how can a Christian treat us like this? Imagine this. These white slaves are saying, yo, these men are meant to be Christian and look at how they're treating us. And what do we do as black people? Get treated worse than this and join them Christians. This doesn't make no sense. Imagine this. This white man's smart enough here to know a Christian. If you're a Christian, a man of God, you shouldn't treat people like this. He's smart enough to know that either a Christianity is wrong or you're not a Christian. We ain't smart enough to know that. This is what we do. We treat it bad like that and we join Christianity. That's what we do. Which lets you know we're backwards. That's lucky. Go ahead.
Yeah, Kadawan Khan. Brought and sold from one planter to another, or attached as horses and beasts for debts of their masters, being whipped at the whipping post as rogues for their master's pleasure, and sleep in stalls worse than hogs in England, and many other ways made miserable beyond expression or Christian imagination.
And they said, yo, this is beyond Christian imagination. They're saying, yo, you see, even the oppressor understood, like, yo, if this man's a Christian, he ain't supposed to treat us like this. Even they know there's something wrong with the treatment. The most ungodly people on the planet understood that this ain't how a Christian's supposed to treat us. So how are us, who's supposed to be the most godly people on the planet, not see? Go ahead.
Another accompanying letter sent at the same time to the Chief Justice of the High Court reads, "My noble lord, I beg your lordship's pardon for the rude approach by a slave."
So now this man's wrote to him saying, oh, I beg you, my pardon. So his wrote to the governors like, yo, the way they're treating us is horrible and rough. Go ahead.
One of those many mentioned in the slave petition to Parliament, thrown together out of his sometime free and noble nation of England, and obscenely buried alive in the desolate vault, the Protestant Purgatory, Barbados.
And he called it the Protestant Purgatory, Barbados. So he's calling it Protestant because he's saying, yo, this is meant to be a Christian country, because he's speaking to them in religious terms, trying to get some benefit, because he's saying, yo, this is meant to be a Protestant country, because it's an extension of England. So he's writing things like that. So lucky. Get me this one. Habani go show.
Khan. Their petition led to a heated debate in Parliament on the 25th of March, 1659. One member, Sir Arthur Hasselridge, said that if we have fought our sons into slavery, we are of all men most miserable.
So now he goes, if we have fought our sons into slavery, so even the white man that was at civil war with these men that shipped them there, he understood that these white men were still their sons, and they felt bad that they put them in slavery. Go ahead.
Another member, Mr. Boscawen, pointed out that if such conditions were allowed to prevail, our lives will be cheap as those of Negroes.
Imagine that, man. He goes, if we let this slavery go on, our lives will be cheap as much as these Negroes, man. Meaning what they're saying is only Negroes should be in slavery and not no white men. They said our life shall be as cheap as these Negroes. They said we're going to be miserable men if our sons if we have our sons in slavery. So now they're in Parliament talking about these white men that are in slavery. Nobody was in Parliament talking about you, because nobody cared about you. You were supposed to be a slave, but they wasn't. That's lucky. Go ahead.
I would have you consider the trade of buying and selling men. Martin Noel, planter and slaver, to whom Rivers and the others had been sold, had been elected MP, and the others had been elected MP for Staffordshire in 1656. He now intervened in the debate to assure the House that conditions on the plantations were not as bad as the petitioners alleged.
So now they're writing back saying, yo, the condition ain't as bad as these lot are making up. They say, nah, the condition ain't as bad as they're making up. Because the Edomites is complaining like, yo, it's rough out here. The slavery is horrible. And so forth. Go ahead.
That the servants, as he called them, were better off than the common husbandmen in England. And that the Barbados was a place as grateful to you for trade as any part of the world, not as odious as it is represented. The Speaker of the House, Sir William Lenthal, responding to the evidence that said, I hope it is not the effect of war to make merchandise of our own men.
So now they said, I hope it's not the effect of war for us to make merchandise of our own men, because these white men was ending up in what they would call white slavery. But there's no point them calling it white slavery, because they was prisoners of war. Because of war is why they ended up in that condition. Now they call it white slavery, whereas they're making out like they went into slavery because of their race, the color of their skin, but they didn't. They went into slavery because of the war. So that's the difference between us and them. Our slavery was based on our color. Their slavery was based on them being prisoners of war. Because you will have white people come up to you and talk about white slavery, white slavery, white slavery. This is what they need to say. We were slaves because we was prisoners of war. They wasn't slaves because of the color of their skin. That's the difference. I need to
if I may, other one, please, yeah. If I may, yeah, they actually done something wrong, didn't they?
Exactly. They went against their king. They went against their Lord Protector.
So they actually done something wrong to be put there where we didn't.
And most of them was criminals as well. So that's why they was getting shipped there. So that's why they went into slavery. Most of them being criminals, prisoners of war, and so forth, fighting against the system. That's why they went there. Theirs had nothing to do with their color. And then even after they were shipped there, the government even considered like, yo, I don't think we should put our countrymen in slavery. They had debates in Parliament like, yo, there are Englishmen, we shouldn't put them in slavery. They had those discussions. Lucky, go ahead.
There are no records extant to show if Rivers, Foyle, and the other gentlemen were ever repatriated, but at least they were able to draw the attention of the English public to the question of white slavery in Barbados. In view of the above, it is surprising that some historians and authors deny that white slavery ever existed in Barbados.
Most historians deny that white slavery ever existed. Why? It's because the white man crying, he calls it white slavery. But what it is, these like just being prisoners and was forced to work. So they gave it the term white slavery to make it sound worse than what it is. So white people run with that term today, white slavery, white slavery, white slavery. Go ahead.
Calm. For instance, Michael Creighton in his Sinews of Empire, 1974, states that there is absolutely no evidence that whites were ever true slaves in the English.
Well, now they call it white slavery, but there's no evidence that they was ever true slaves. They didn't go through what we went through. Now, was there plantations? Yes. But was it as hard for them as it was for us? No. Go ahead.
Khan. He goes on to quote Eric Williams, who in his Capitalism and Slavery, 1942, states that whites were never quite slaves in the sense that blacks were.
And even they understand that whites were never quite the same as slaves as blacks were. What we went through was real slavery. What they went through, what they went through is a glimpse of what they're going to go through in the kingdom. That's what they went through, man. They went through a glimpse of what we're going to put them through in the kingdom, man. and they cried about it and called it white slavery. You want to see white slavery? When Jesus Christ returns, you're going to see white slavery, man.
Right.
That's what you see. You think this was white slavery? When Jesus Christ returns, you're going to see white slavery, man.
Right.
That's what you're going to see.
And it's only right. And it's only right, other one.
It's lucky. Go ahead, Ronnie, go.
However, Creighton does admit that the unfortunate Irish captives and perhaps some Barbados criminals were servants for life without indentures.
See, and it says the Irish and some of the criminals, the reason they was there is because a lot of them was criminals, man. That's why. A lot of them was criminals. So criminals go to jail and so forth. A lot of them was criminals. So their jail was the plantation, man. They didn't go there because the color of their skin. They went to criminals. Go ahead.
Just what the Irish captives endured as servants.
Salakia, Abaniga, you know, you're just supposed to read up to the
Just
where it's yellow, yeah. The other things you don't have to really read.
Sweet one.
Let me see if I need this one. Bear with me. Yeah, let me get this one. This one sounds like Kumbaya. Let me get this one.
Colonial John Scott, a visitor to the island who wrote a long description of his experience there, described black and white slaves working together in the fields.
Describe what?
Salakia?
They described black and white slaves
Working together in the fields.
Working together in the fields. So what you will have is white people come to us and use this and say, yeah, we're the same, we've both been in slavery. No. We was real slaves and you was just, a criminal that, had to go serve some time. That's lucky. Go ahead.
They are just permitted to live, and a very great part Irish, derided by Negroes and branded with the epithet of white. What's that word mean there?
What is a part?
Branded with the same kind of notion that they were slaves like us, basically.
Say that again. I can't. What it is? I can't see. On my side.
Epithet. Can you look at that, please, Abaniga, if you don't mind? Find what that is.
Epithet is used as a term of abuse.
Oh, right. Okay. So Negroes were branded. Salakia the one. So Negroes were so the Irish and Negroes were branded with the same abuse of white slaves. Okay.
It's like let me get this one. Get this one from me. Get Habaniga to get me the next one.
So like the other one.
Get this slide for me, and I'll get Habaniga to get me the next one.
Okay, cut one card. I have, for my particular satisfaction, inspected many of their plantations.
Well, now this man inspected many plantations. Go ahead.
And have seen 30s, sometimes 40 Christians, English, Scottish, and Irish at work in the parching sun.
So now the press is crying, saying, "Oh, it's many Christians, white men, Irish, and they're working in the sun." Listen, man, how come no one ain't got no sympathy for us? We've been working in the sun our whole life, man. Yes, lucky. Go ahead.
Karawan Khan. Shoes or stocking. A French priest, Pierre Labette, who visited Barbados in the 1700s, also referred to some field workers as white slaves.
So now they seen it, and they was like, "Yo, they're working like slaves, man." So now they would see it and say they're working like slaves. But listen, there was never slaves like us. Now they're working. Listen, white people say it today, they're working me like a slave. White people say it. When they have to do work, they call it slavery because they don't like doing work. So they're saying things like, "Oh, they're working me like a slave." That's lucky. Go ahead.
Slaves were divided into two main classes.
So now back then, slaves were divided in classes. They had different classes for slaves. Go ahead.
The field slaves and the house slaves.
They had a field slave and a house slave. So in the Caribbean, they had what? The house nigga and the field nigga, and so forth. And then they had them Edomites that was either out in the house or in the field also. Go ahead.
There were 4 categories of both black and white field slaves, divided according to their age and strength, each with specific tasks. The number 1, or great gang, was composed of strong, mature black and white men and women for actual field operations. They preferred the hardest work on the plantations. They performed the hardest work on the plantations during crop time.
Now the hardest work was during crop time. So now there's a certain time when there's way more work to do. Once the plants grew and it's harvest season and so forth, it's time for the work to begin. So a couple of months you're working like a dog. Yes, Lucky, go ahead.
During crop time, from February to April, or take him away now. Take him away. I'm not playing, man. Take him away. Salaki. Other one. They performed the hardest work on the field operations. They performed the hardest work on the plantations during crop time from February to April or early May. More hours of continuous labor were required than at any other time.
So now this is letting you know at a certain time of year they needed more hands on deck. Go ahead.
The great gangs, driven by whips, often worked a 20-hour day, but received extra food during this period.
Now, because they wanted these up to work hard, their reward was extra food, but they worked a 20-hour day. Listen, a 20-hour day is crazy, man. How much sleep you getting? A few hours, man. Rocky, go ahead.
They worked without their mid-morning break and were allowed 1 hour for their dinner.
See, so usually at most places you get like 2 free breaks. You get a break for a little snack, then you get your lunch break. They wasn't allowed that morning break, man. They just got an hour lunch break. So go ahead.
They cut the cane and carried it to the mills that produced.
So cut the cane and carry it to the mill. So now they're letting you know how to make the sugar cane now. Go ahead.
That produced the sugar. During the out of crop season, the great gang was occupied in tilling the fields, digging cane holes, planting canes and food crops, and collecting animal dung and human excrement, which were then taken by them to the field and used as fertilizer.
Go ahead.
The second gang, called the Little Gang.
So now that was the second gang called the Little Gang. So understand this, that slavery was run like Jaguar Land Rover. You got different sections to it. One man works in the line, one man works in the back, one man works here, one man works in the forklift. It was run like that. So Lucky, go ahead.
The second gang, called the Little Gang, was composed of adolescents with an average age of around 15. They weeded the fields, planted food crops such as corn, and weeded the fields.
The planted food crops, corn and so forth. Go ahead.
Planted food crops such as corn, and during the season gathered cane trash for sugar factory fuel. The cane trash was also used as thatching material for the slave huts. The third gang was made up of children.
So now
the age of, wow,
children, go ahead.
Deep boy. The third gang was made up of children from the age of 5 or 6 years up to 11 or 12. Wow.
So man, they had a whole section for kids as well. So they had kids in slavery as well. They had a whole section for kids that was from the age of 5 upwards. This is the third gang. Go ahead.
They were called the meat picker gang.
They was called the meat picker gang. So this was run like a business where you have different sections. Go ahead.
Or the hog minders gang. Their main job was to collect grass or fodder for the animals. They also attended to the fowls and small animals and made up about 15% of the total slave population.
But so the kids made up about 15% of the total slave population. Let me get one more. Hold on. Yeah, let me get this one. Habaniga. This is the last one. Then we out of here.
Khan, if the planters in Barbados or Jamaica were forced by circumstance to remain on the island.
So now this is talking about after a hurricane. We skipped a lot of the slides. So there was a hurricane, and then a lot of the white people left the island and went back to England because they had somewhere to go. But obviously, the black people didn't have nowhere to go. So their huts had their slave huts where they was living had disappeared, and they was just sleeping out in the open. Go ahead.
Khan, they sent their children to England to become educated.
So now they would send their children to England because they didn't have no schools in the Caribbean at that time, and they believed the Caribbean people's dormant education was nonsense there. So they would send them to England to be educated. Go ahead.
The establishment of schools on both of these islands was neglected. Learning is here at the lowest EBB, wrote a historian of Jamaica in 1740. There is no public schools in the whole island, neither do they seem fond of the thing. Several large donations have been made for such uses but have never taken effect.
So they're saying that several donations have been put forth for them to get schools in the Caribbean, but it ain't taking none effect. Go ahead.
The office of a teacher is looked upon as contemptible. A man of any parts or learning that would employ himself in that business would be despised and starved. Many of the rich planters kept their wives in England and consequently...
So the rich planters, they kept their wives in England because they knew bring them to the Caribbean, it runs the risk of disease and all of those kind of things. So they kept a lot of their ribs in England. Go ahead.
And consequently took the black slave as their mistresses.
And then what they would do, they would take the black women as their mistresses. So now they would leave their wives in England and the black women would become their mistresses. Go ahead.
According to Eric Williams in his book From Columbus to Castros, 1972, this produced all gradations of miscegenation which produced from their game of washing their blackamoors white.
So now they had a thing where this was a game where they would wash their blackamoors white. Go ahead.
That is, the planter slept with his daughters.
So this is what would happen. The white man would rape the black woman, and then they would have a child. They would have a daughter. So this is what would happen. The white man would rape the black woman. They would have a daughter, and then he would rape that daughter, and then rape the granddaughter as well to turn them all white. Go ahead.
Though all the grades of incest. This was one of the reasons why the planters welcomed the Irish women. As Henry Cromwell wrote, they had only Negro and Maroon women to solace them. So
now they called it a thing. They played a game called washing the blackamoors white. So the way that they would wash the blackamoors white would be they would have sex with the black woman, should have a mixed race child. They would then rape that child. This is her own father. Her own father would rape that child. And then when she has a child, that child would look white. So they said, all right, we're going to wash out the blackness, and this is the way we're going to do it. So that's what the slave master would do, called washing their blackamoors white. And then he didn't believe he was related to that black child because he's like, I'm white, that child's black. That child comes from a slave. That child's no relative of mine. So when he's having sex with that child or that mixed race person, he's thinking, this ain't no relation to me, not realizing that is his daughter. Then he would get them pregnant, and then over time would all look white, and he called it washing out the black. Anyway, so that's the class cut over on the time. So how can you can call it?
Men of Israel, Hamadian Shabbat, Hamadian Barak, Yahweh Hashem
Shabbat Kafam.
Yo, Jamatar, any sisters in the class of the world?
Hello, all.
Class dismissed.
All right, well, again, we'll be here tomorrow. All right, shalom, Israel.
Okay.